Konnichiwa, and welcome to the Samurai Way, the podcast where we dive into the wisdom of the samurai, the art of Japanese living, and the philosophies that help us live with purpose and perseverance. I'm Lori Sagawa, and whether you're here to explore Bushido, the samurai, uncover the meaning of Ikigai, or just looking for a little extra gambaru, never give up spirit in your daily life, you're in the right place. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's walk this path together. Are you ready? Let's begin. Today I have the honor and privilege of having Sam Ushio, the founder of Ikigai Lab, as our guest today. He leads the social enterprise's commitment to human sustainability and social impact. Sam fuses a powerful combination of 10,000 hours of Ikigai experience and 20 years of global asset management experience to design purpose-driven ecosystems for individuals and organizations around the world. Prior to finding the Ikigai Lab, Sam was the director, practice management at Russell Investments, where he led the award-winning team that coached approximately 1,000 financial advisors per year. And he has an MBA from the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. He holds a Bachelor of Science from the University of Nebraska in Marketing and Finance with an emphasis in psychology. Sam is a council leader of the U.S.-Japan Council and serves on the advisory board of the Clifton Strengths Institute at the University of Nebraska. So please help me welcome Sam Ushio. So welcome, Sam. I'm so glad that you're here, and we're going to have a great time today diving into Ikigai. And I'm so glad that I met you. And so what I'd like to do is, how do you define Ikigai for our audience?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me here, Lori. It's a pleasure to be with you in the spirit of Ikigai and our shared commitment to this wisdom tradition. Um, how do I define Ikigai? So I think in very simple terms, I define Ikigai as intentionality. I think if we can zoom out, uh, I look at it in terms of it's a 1,000-year-old Japanese concept interpreted as your reason for being, no direct English translation, derivative of two words, iki, which means life, and gai, which means value or worth. But in particular, how it resonates with me on a personal level is largely about living with intention. Um, so it's definitely present and shaped my journey, and that's a little bit of how I view the concept of Ikigai.
Well, that's wonderful. And could you share a bit about when your family went to Japan? I found that so interesting.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit of context on how I got to the concept of Ikigai. So you had mentioned it in the lead-in. My background, my professional background is in financial services. I worked in that field for roughly about 2 decades, and had began to observe that the word growth was everywhere in the industry, always defined by financial growth, and simultaneously observing that personal growth was being compromised in the quest for financial growth. And so, in observing that in the industry, it forced some reflection and the identification that a lot of my decision making was similar to everything that I was complaining about in the industry. And so that led me on a journey in 2017, where I left corporate and started to explore. And as part of that exploration process, started to dig a little bit deeper into the family history of my great grandparents that immigrated to the United States in the early 1900s from Fukuoka, to preserve the legacy of a 1,200-year-old Shinto shrine, called Imori Jinja Imori Shrine. So that their story in coming to America, that was heavily influenced by a number of different factors. there's probably a couple touch points that I'd be happy to share more. Um, but that story of them coming to America influenced my journey to Ikigai. I think the question that you're asking about this most recent family trip, roughly about a year ago, in March of 2024, 36 family members from 11 cities in the United States. Um, so family members in the United States, so Sansei, Yonsei, Gosei, third generation, fourth generation, fifth generation, traveled to Japan, to Fukuoka, to Imori, to participate in a ceremony that paid our respects to our ancestral heritage, and in particular to our great grandparents that played such an important role in preserving the legacy of the shrine, and then also, played obviously an important role in all of our lives and in all of our, path to get to this place. So it was an especially meaningful experience on many levels, and still is very present with me today.
Well, that's I love that story. So, what generation are you? I'm just curious.
I'm fourth generation.
Fourth generation. Okay,
Yeah, Yonsei.
you don't say. I thought so because you're much younger than I am.
What generation are you?
Third, Sansei.
Yeah, third. Sansei.
Do you speak
Okay.
Japanese?
I don't. I wish I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's it's hard. I think it's really hard because I started learning it in college because I had to have 2 years of a language, and so I chose Japanese because I took French in high school and I didn't really like it, and
Mm.
so my parents spoke Japanese to each other, and I wanted to know what they were saying to each other, so I took Japanese, and I'm
That's
still
yeah.
learning.
That I my father never spoke Japanese. My grandparents never spoke Japanese either.
Huh.
So it was part of that, that immigration story where, it was like if you want to assimilate and acclimate to the culture, you leave the language behind, which is
Uh-huh.
unfortunate because I wish I did speak the language, but I don't.
Never too late.
Never too late. That's right.
Never
That's
too
right.
late.
That's
I'd
right.
like to know more about the Ikigai Lab, if you could share with the audience about it and how it came to be.
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's a social enterprise that focuses on really two key areas. One is human sustainability, and two is societal impact. And I think that in many ways is representative of the ethos or the spirit of Ikigai. The approach is, I call it old school, new school. So there's the old school, that there is wisdom traditions that have passed on from many generations, that there's probably something that works. Um, so concepts like Ikigai, that are a wisdom tradition that has been around for many generations. We marry those concepts with new school academic science-based research that provides the evidence on why it works. And so, as part of my professional background, when I was working in financial services and doing a lot of kind of management consulting within financial services, it was heavy quantitative driven. And when I made that transition to Ikigai, I was finding that a lot of it was kind of qualitative stuff. And so what we focus on within Ikigai Lab is this combination of old school, new school. Um, the way that it takes form is in a handful of ways. We work with organizations. In particular, we focus on the team structure to help link individual purpose to team purpose to organizational purpose. Um, on the other side, so that's from a business to business perspective. We also, from a B2C perspective, or to the individual, we have a number of different networks where we work with um, purpose-driven innovators to help link who they are to actualizing innovation. We work with certified financial planners to help them draw that link between purpose and meaning and money. And then we also work with students. So um, we partnered with the Clifton Strengths Institute at the University of Nebraska to launch a fellows program that supports activating purpose and the concept of Ikigai uh, for um, for students in college that are kind of at that point where they're starting to make that transition into the next chapter in life. So those are the different ways that we work with the world, I would say. And in terms of the framework, which I think you saw some of this in action at the Ikigai Summit, is it's heavily rooted in clarity on values. So, what are the values that are important to me that I want to make sure that I am intentional about? Um, so, a big component of the entry point, regardless of whether it's a team at a technology company or a junior in college as an individual, the entry point is typically a values discovery process. So that person or that team has a foundation of um, who am I and what's important to me, so that I can activate that to have better personal and or professional outcomes.
Wonderful. Would you mind sharing about how Ikigai helped you with that transition and how you apply it in your life today?
Yeah. Well, so initially when I left corporate, um, I was really in exploration phase. I mean, I refer to it as my second adolescence. It was kind of this stage in life where I gave myself the permission to just explore, I did that for probably about 6 or 7 months, and in that exploration phase, living here in Seattle with a lot of very innovative brands here, I was meeting with as many leaders as possible just to learn what do they do for leadership, what do they do for innovation, and in those conversations, I was finding topics like um, emotional intelligence and strengths-based positive psychology and human-centered design and systems thinking and all these concepts that were new to me that seemed to provide some direction on the solution between that question that I was grappling with on personal growth and financial growth. And it seemed like somewhere in there was the right solution to to move things forward so that they're not mutually exclusive, but they're harmonious. Uh, and so I tried a bunch of creative stuff that didn't work. That failed pretty miserably. And as I was hitting that edge of just like what am I doing here, that's where I really started to dig into the family story. And so an important inflection point on this journey was um, when my great grandfather, his name is Shigeo, my great grandmother is Taka. They had come to America in the early 1900s. They were running a cleaners business outside of Salt Lake City. They had child number one, two, and three, and at child number three, the demands of running a business, the demands of managing a family, and then the responsibility of preserving the legacy of this 1,200-year-old shrine across the world was just too much. And so they made a decision to take the three kids back to Japan to live
Mm.
with family. And I found a picture that they had taken right before Taka had taken the three kids back to Japan. And that picture was taken here in Seattle.
Oh,
And so I found that picture. I have three children. The ages of those three children were the ages of my three children when I left corporate and made that really important decision in my life. And so it suddenly just seemed very relatable. And I realized that the decisions that they were grappling with in terms of purpose and their ikigai. So that I think that played an important role in just helping me have a better understanding of the concept of purpose through the lens of ikigai, that is doing something that has impact beyond just mastery, personal mastery,
hmm.
because Taka and Shigeo had had a life that they had made some very intentional decisions that were bigger than them.
Mhm. How have you incorporated Ikigai with your children?
Yeah, it's probably that a bit of that old school, new school as well. On a more tactical basis, I've experimented with a concept called the Ikigai Junior, which was one of those experiments that failed pretty miserably. Um, I learned that on a Saturday afternoon, the last thing that a bunch of kids want to do is listen to some guy uh, click through a bunch of slides and have them conduct a bunch of introspective lines of questions. It basically felt like a 6 day of school, I think, for all these kids. Um, but I think what that did for my children, at least, and hopefully for a lot of the kids that participated, was it gave them uh, a foundation to associate this wisdom tradition with who they are,
Mhm.
right? So that we had T-shirts that are made. It's still the favorite T-shirt of some of the kids, and so there's that on a kind of an identity philosophical level. I think down at a tactical level, um, I'm a big believer in strengths-based positive psychology, and so we try to incorporate like what are the talents that you want to be intentional about, and what are
Mhm.
the talents that you want to bring into your soccer practice, and what did you learn in your basketball game, and so you know that intentionality has a bit of a meta perspective when it's like I'm trying to be intentional about encouraging them to be intentional and finding the right spaces to incorporate the concept of ikigai.
Hmm. Well, that's beautiful. I had a book that I was sharing with people, and it's called Let Us Get in Trouble. I'd love to share
Mm.
that with you sometime. And it's about my mentor, and she has actually a design lab up in Seattle. She passed away, but her design lab is still. She in her 80s. She started a school at Stanford for merging art and design and marketing.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm in her 80s. She was working with all these young college students, and she actually influenced my life a lot. She always told me I was more Japanese than I realized,
Mm.
and I wasn't raised in the Japanese community, so I didn't know what that really meant until I went to Japan, and I've been returning I multiple times.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Did she start the design lab when she was 80?
The
Or she was,
school, yeah, it's a graduate school at Stanford.
wow.
Isn't
Wow.
that something?
That's impressive.
That
Yeah.
is really impressive. I think she passed away in her 90s, but
Mm.
she always would tell me, it's some when I was pretty young when I was working for her, and she says, well, someday all you're gonna need is your laptop and you can work anywhere in the world as long as you have a connection. I thought, okay. And she also was instrumental, and actually she designed the N95 mask, and she did it because she's working for 3M and they had that material, and she goes, think of all these things you can do. She had 100 ways that you could use that material, and one of them was making a bra, and the other one was making the mask, because she said masks are like, we used to be those flat things like the old diapers, and now they're
Mm.
formed and they have the elastic on it. They're much more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like she had a big impact on the world and on you.
Yeah, she did. She loved Japan. She just told me, she goes, you have to go. And so we did. We're back in the 80s when the exchange rate was amazing. It was like almost 300. And now it's not bad. It's probably the second best time since I've been going to Japan. But yeah, I love to go to Japan. It's my happy place.
When was your first trip?
80, let's see, 83, 82
Okay.
or 83, 82. No, it's 82. And
Okay.
it was almost 300 yen per dollar. It's like,
Wow.
we stayed in Kyoto for the most time, and we actually met my father's side of the family, and that was
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of family resemblance, and even the way they laughed, and their mannerisms, and it was very interesting.
father's side is in Kyoto.
Tokushima, they're from Tokushima, but they're in Tokushima, Osaka, and I don't know, Wakayama too, I think. But we just went to Shikoku overnight and stayed there. And he was a very successful businessman and had the ships that cargo ships that go between the islands, because at one time there wasn't a bridge. Everyone had to go by ferry. So Shikoku was rather cloistered and away from the rest of the world. But now that they have the bridge, and when they first opened it, can you imagine $18 per person to go across that bridge?
Wow.
I know
Wow.
things are can be very expensive in Japan, but right now is a great time to go. Food is wonderful. You can eat for $10 in
Yeah.
Japan, much better than in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very high quality for
Yes,
$10. Yeah.
yes, yeah. I tell people you won't believe the food if you go to the convenience store. That's good too. If you go to the convenience store here in the United States, you're going to get those hot dogs roll on the grill. I'm like, no, nobody wants to eat that. But in Japan, you can eat the food. It's so good. It's so
It
good.
is. It is. It is. You have a trip that you're leading to Japan,
I do,
correct?
and there's still room if anybody would like to come. It's amazing. We go to Himeji. We stay in Kyoto the whole time. We go to the
Okay.
Uji, the tea capital of Japan, Nara, Himeji, and then we go to Miyama, which is out of the country, about 2 hours, and they have a rice planting festival
Mm.
the second Sunday of every May. And so that's what we'll be watching. And it was amazing. We happened to come across it last time we went. I just told our tour person, I said, I want to do something in the country on a Sunday because I know it'll be very crowded. So we went to Miyama. It's a little tricky getting there. You have two trains and a bus. And if you miss one, you're going to be really late. But we went there. When we drove up, I go, that's what I read about. I read about women planting rice in the fields, and they do it by machine now, but these women were doing it in their pants and probably boots and
Oh,
just
wow.
funny. Yes, it was really amazing. So it's a wonderful trip. If anyone is interested in coming, just contact me. There's room for a few more. So I love going to Japan. I really
That's,
do.
that's wonderful. Do you lead that trip on an annual basis
Well, to be honest with you,
ish?
it's probably going to be my last one because I just signed up with luxury cruise. Let's see, how do I say it? Destination Cruises, and they have a pool, talent pool, and I put my resumes and all the things that I offered in that. And they called me within a couple days. Not called me. They emailed me within a couple days ago. We love this, and I'm going to be teaching about language and customs and uh, maybe even Japanese folk tales. I love doing that,
Oh,
and
wow.
Bushido and the different principles of Japan.
Oh,
Like
wow.
today, Ikigai, Gambaru. And that's what helped me get through traumatic brain injury. And so that's why I'm very passionate about sharing this with other people because it's life changing, as you know. It's a
Yeah.
game changer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've worked with women in the prison while I was recovering, and they didn't know why they were there. And I would just encourage them. I said, you have purpose. Let's find it. Let's don't come back here. I didn't say it like that, but we want to reduce recidivism and have them find their purpose. And because everybody has value, everybody has worth, everybody has talents, it's just that they haven't been used wisely.
Yeah. 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 That's beautiful.
It is. It's quite a journey. That which I once scorned, now I embraced. And I grew up in the 60s, so that wasn't a great time to be Japanese. I was
Mm,
teased and bullied and punched in the gut one time. And so, like, it was awful. But
yeah.
I just came to appreciate it. And I remember what my grandparents would tell me, and my aunts and uncles, and the way that they lived in community. And it made an impact on me, how they live their lives.
Was there was a message that they delivered, or just the you observed how they acted,
Well,
their actions?
my mom said that my grandmother used to talk to me, but I don't remember her. I think she's tried to teach me Japanese, but I remember her just kind of what she did was teach me. That's how Japanese do. They lead and teach by example.
Mm,
And she taught me about honesty because she was a proprietor. And she had the keys to the store underneath her her building, or not building, but her business. And it was a toy store. So she would let us go in there, and it was like going into the candy store or the toy store in the middle of the night. Not quite. And then she would let us pick something out, but she would always write a note and just write down how much it was and put the money in there. And that left an impression on me, because I thought,
Mm,
we could have gone in there, took what we want and left, and nobody'd know. But the honesty of the Japanese people is just, it's incredible. It's so ingrained in them.
yeah, 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 yep. Those are important lessons to learn when, I mean, at any age, but especially when you're young.
Hmm. And so
Yeah.
what you're doing is so important, because so many people don't know their purpose in life. They just kind of go here and there, and they listen to other people, they follow trends. Even has to do with clothes. Like some people say, follow the trends. Well, not every color looks good on every person. And so that's like, I don't look good in orange. I always wear navy or black or something like that. But if we follow, like what you say, follow our true passion and what we're good at, it could make the whole difference in the world. And I believe that crime would be down. I believe that we wouldn't have as much. We wouldn't have to have alarm systems on our doors, because people wouldn't be stealing from each other. Wouldn't have to pick up the garbage on the side of the road, because people are respectful and they take care of themselves, their own garbage. So
Right,
I just
right.
commend you for doing what you're doing, because it's so important.
Yeah, well, so there's something that you mentioned right there that I think is an um, important in the definition of Ikigai, or like an understanding of Ikigai, that especially in the West, I think probably everywhere in the world, but in particular in the West, when we think about purpose, we often think about the big existential question, right? Like, what am I on this planet to do? Which can be debilitating. It can limit our ability to take action on anything, because we just get stuck trying to figure out an answer to that question. And so we may lack the courage to take a step, because we don't want to take a step in the wrong direction, because we're grappling with that big question. And so the the research that, when I started to explore Ikigai, I wanted to go to the Japanese scholars and really learn from the Japanese scholars. And so that informed the understanding of the concept of Ikigai through the lens of daily, right? Like aligning your actions with your priorities on a daily basis, which I think is a is a beautiful way of approaching life in general, when we are aligning our actions with our priorities in this moment, but in particular in this day, and we have a lifetime of those days. We're living our reason for being, which is much more, gives us much more agency and control to make a decision, versus, I think I'm going to take a step in this direction because I'm not real clear on what my purpose is in life. So that's a big reason on why we, engage initially with, what are your values? So
Hmm.
if I have an understanding of what my values are, and I can take action and live by those values, even in this very simple moment, then I'm living my reason for being, which is a lot. There's just so much liberty and freedom in that, versus I think how human beings in general are wired, but in particular how a lot of, um, society is designed in the West.
Well, this could almost be two episodes, Sam. And so, but I think our time is about up. I really want to thank you, and just if you had any parting words for the audience.
Uh, Two things. One would be go on Lori's trip, because that sounds like it's an incredible trip.
Thank you.
Sign up for that trip. Two would be, just, identify a value that's important to you, and let that fuel your journey. It doesn't have to be something that is exhaustive or heavily, over engineered. I think everyone can think of a person, like you just had referenced, a couple people in your life, that we admire oftentimes represent a value that we hold dear. And so I would encourage everyone just to think of a person in their life that they admire and that they respect and had a positive impact on them. And then think of a word that represents that person and then let that word fuel the day at least. Um, so that's what how I would encourage everyone to think of this concept and start to actualize it or activate it in terms of their life.
Or perhaps you could come back again. Would
Yeah,
love that.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all the audience for listening and hearing the wisdom from Sam Ushio, and have a great day. I'm really pleased and honored that this is our first episode, and I really wanted Sam to be here because Ikigai is where it starts. Know your purpose in life and live that purpose and live it with intention is so important. And I can just imagine what our world would look like and what it would be like if more people were living their true purpose. And that's a wrap for today's episode, The Samurai Way. I hope you found a little inspiration, a new perspective, or just something to reflect upon as you go about your day. Now remember, the samurai spirit isn't just about history. It's about how you show up, face challenges, and live with purpose. Whether it's Ikigai guiding your path or a little extra Gambaru pushing you forward, keep walking strong. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, or leave a review. It really helps. And if you've got thoughts, questions, or just want to connect, just contact me. So until next time, stay focused, stay determined, and keep living with purpose. Mata ne.